Hi, my name is Nathan, and this is KubeFM.
So, first things first, who are you, what's your role, and where do you work?
Hi, my name is Nathen Harvey. I lead the DORA program here at Google Cloud. DORA is a research program that looks into how do high-performing technology-driven teams thrive in today's environment.
So, DORA focuses on measuring how quickly and reliably teams deliver software. What are the biggest misconceptions teams have when they try to improve those metrics?
Yeah, I think that when you try to improve those metrics, one of the biggest misconceptions that teams have is focusing on the metrics. Actually, you don't get better at, say, deployment frequency by thinking really hard about deployment frequency. DORA's research looks into the capabilities and conditions that have to be present to allow that to improve. Things like automated testing, things like continuous integration, better documentation, better processes within your organization. So that's what's really important, is focusing on those capabilities and conditions that are going to drive the metrics.
A lot of teams invest heavily in tooling and platforms, but DORA is about outcomes. What are the most common mistakes you see when teams assume new infrastructure will automatically improve their delivery performance?
When teams assume that new infrastructure is automatically going to improve their delivery performance, I think it's a bit misguided. The reality is that tools are necessary but not sufficient. We need to think about adding additional infrastructure, but we also have to think about changing the processes and the way that we approach problems. If you think back to the days before Kubernetes, before we even had containers, how were we working with things? And then how has that changed over time? You know, containers and scheduling containers and running them on Kubernetes, like this changed the development approach, it changed how we interact with one another, it changed a number of different things. Observability being another one of those things, right? We've got to think about all of the entire process, and this idea of collaboration is super important. I like to say that you really can't separate tools and culture. The two really reinforce and amplify one another.
DORA metrics are often measured at a high level. How do you make sure you're actually capturing meaningful delivery performance and not just tracking activity?
Yeah, folks oftentimes try to measure DORA at a very high level. Sometimes that looks like measuring deployment frequency across an entire organization. I have some bad info for those folks. You're doing it wrong. Look, deployment frequency and any of those software delivery performance metrics are really meant at the level of an application or service. So what is an application or service? Well, it's a thing that's providing real value to real users. That might be your overall platform. You could measure that. How is it doing with software delivery performance? Or you could measure it at maybe an application that sits on top of the platform. That might be another one. And the other problem that I see folks running into is they start doing comparisons across teams. The reality is that when you're comparing, say, an application that sits on top of a platform versus the platform, you're doing an apples to oranges comparison. You really want to only compare, or maybe I should say the best comparisons are this application's software delivery performance versus this same application's software delivery performance 6 months ago or 6 months from now. It's really that you're trying to improve yourself and use a baseline of your own application and go from there.
Nathan, what's next for you?
What's next for me and DORA is continuing to dig into and understand how is AI changing the game. We are seeing AI impact every bit of software development and frankly every bit of business. DORA will stay focused on that software development, developer experience, delivery, and so forth. But how is AI changing all of how that works? And are there new metrics that we need to be thinking about as teams so that we can really make sure that we're using this technology to drive our businesses forward?
And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, the best way is probably to hop over to LinkedIn and find me there. And my name is misspelled, so I'm a little bit easier to find. It's Nathen Harvey, Harvey.